everyone, it's Kwa here, and I would like to introduce you to today's special guest. His name is Miha Matlevsky, and he is known as the Failure Coach. He is an entrepreneur who has started several businesses. He's brought it from 0 to 7 to 9 figures. Along the way, he's encountered lots of challenges. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Miha. Thanks. Well, Miha, I really appreciate you being on the call today, and finally get to meet you. I've heard a lot of great things about you. I saw your videos doing these amazing interviews, and you're also known as the Failure Coach as well. But before we get into that, let's go a bit about your background.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for allowing me to be your guest and to get introduced to your audience. As we'll get into the story, in 2009, I had the major crash, went completely bankrupt, in debt, $5 million. And then through that journey, after the suicide attempt, through that journey back to, being who I am today, I rescued from a shelter a dog named Happy.
Happy, okay, yeah. What type of dog was it?
Yeah, a mix. Just from the streets.
Just a mix. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love dogs as well,
he looks like a young Labrador, which is cool. Like Labradors when they're like 6, 7, 8 months old. Well,
they're pretty active.
He looks like that forever.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And he was a big part of the support and to get me out, to start talking to people again, to take better care of myself, because at that point it was I didn't have any love for myself. I was burning myself out. My only goal was to get out of debt and to just create something, and I wasn't taking really good care about what I eat and nothing. And so it was actually him, because I love the little guy so much. And, those mixes, they live forever.
Yeah.
And one day as we were walking, I was thinking, oh my God, I mean, if something happens to me, what will happen to Happy? And it was basically, he was that momentum starter for me to start working on myself more, and do stuff, and eventually I started getting that love for myself back and so on. But he was an amazing support on that journey, and who knows what would have happened if I wouldn't have him. And so later on, I adopted another dog from Serbia, the second one. Well, she's behind me on the wall on that picture. That's Bobika.
Bobika, okay. Happy and Bobika.
Yeah. And so that's how I got introduced to what's happening in Serbia when it comes to animals. And it's a huge problem here with animals in general, the mentality of people and so on. So many dogs on the streets and so on. And I sold my last startup. I had the exit. I was not tied in. I had all the time and everything and all the resources, and I was like, okay, so you have to do something with your life. And I was planning to just go live somewhere else. I mean, I've been in Slovenia for 39 years. Let's explore something else.
True.
And so that's how life got me here. And I've been here now for 3 years, and I'm trying to do as much as I can, not just in rescue part, which is the last stage, but I'm trying to get, the people to start talking so that we can try and do some mentality change with the kids and so on. So it's a huge passion of mine, and I don't plan to stop here. This is really one of the 2 whys why I do what I do. Fail Coach for me is really a tool. It's something I'm good at. I've been through the trenches. I can really help entrepreneurs. I mean, I have so many amazing testimonials. So it's something I'm really good at. I love doing it. I know I can help others, but in return, we earn money, and none of that goes to me. It goes straight into the 2 passions of mine. So one, the animals, and I want to scale this to billions so that I can, not just rescue here in Serbia, but Asia, Africa, South America, like huge problems all around the world. So that's one thing. And the other one is because...
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Have you got an online charity where people can donate money to your cause?
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not yet.
Set something on. Yeah.
Yes, we are. It's in the works.
That's good.
It's in the works. We will do that, but I mostly want to be dependent on myself. I don't want to. I mean, of course, we will welcome anything, but I don't want to be dependent on any government or UN or whatever. I want to make sure that I can fund that myself. So that's one thing.
Awesome.
And the other one, because I almost lost my life because of failures. And, as the fail coach, you talk a lot about failures. I was on a lot of stages as well. And then people reach out to you. And it was only then when I realized how big of a problem this whole failure is and what a taboo it is. The other thing that we are working on is Failures Anonymous, which is again another nonprofit. And
Failures
the idea
Anonymous.
is, yes, the idea is like the AA meetings, small groups of people throughout the world. We already did a lot of test runs back in Slovenia and here in Serbia, and the results were crazy, amazing. I mean, mind-blowing, the emotions and everything, the the breakthroughs. I mean, it was just absolutely crazy good. And so that's the second nonprofit is to, get that up and running. And again, I don't want to be dependent on, anybody's mercy. I believe I know well enough how to grow and scale businesses. I've done that in the past. I'm helping my clients. So that's the goal. In the last few months, we were laying down foundations, and now we are slowly approaching the scaling phase.
Awesome. Yeah, I was looking at your website, and I can definitely see the testimonials that you've got on the website of all the people that you've helped out as well. One person said that you helped him build up the business, and you're holding her hand all along the way. So you're really helping a lot of people out there. But let's have a look at your origin story. Let's have a look at you've been in 23 years in business as well, and I think you've started over 10 companies, 7 to 9 figures. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I dropped out of high school when I was 17.
Okay.
Not because I was stupid or anything. It was just like, why would I learn about history? What good could that do to me? My father.
I'm still not using some of the maths and like trigonometry. I'm still not using it. So
yeah. I mean, I was a little bit, that rebel without a cause. I was a very spoiled child. I do come from a family where I was the only child, and everybody there was just doing whatever they could to spoil me, and no one ever held me accountable for anything, like really, that was actually my adversity, was too perfect childhood, because fast forward a little bit, when I was 23, my father was one day diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. 2 days later, they put him on drugs to ease the pain. And 3 weeks later, he died.
Wow.
I had no introduction into the real world. And a few months before that, my grandparents died as well. So in about a year and a half, I had almost my whole family die, except my mom. And one of my granddads, and the granddad was, already very sick and so on. So nothing, he could do to help me. I mean, we were helping him. And my mom, she was just a bank, not even a clerk, but she I always make jokes that she was sitting in an office and she would just put papers from one pile to another one and put a few numbers into Excel sheet in between. So, she didn't have any business or any knowledge or anything like that. And so when my father died, I took over the company, and I was very...
You were very young at the time as well, right? You must be very young at the time.
23. 23, but also I was very cocky. I was very, I'm so great and so good and all of that, because I was told that my whole life. So I never took the time, to say, oh, okay, so this is something new. How do we approach this? I just jumped in. It would be so much smarter to hire a CEO. It would be so much smarter to say, oh shit, I need some education. Let's buy a book or two or whatever. Something
so it was all
that
just
can
trial and
teach
error.
me. Yeah, but I just jumped in, and a few months later, the company was almost bankrupted.
Wow.
But then, life sometimes gives you some luck. And so I met two people. They were good in finances. They saw something in me that I'm good with networking and sales. And they said, well, we'll put some money in, give us a share. They took over 55%. We'll run the company and you do what you're best at. Here's the credit card. Here's the phone. Here's the car keys. You do your thing. And I did. And very quickly, we were making 150% more in revenue from month to month. And so quite quickly, in a few months span, life became very good again. Money, partying, cars, this, that. And I was always the entrepreneurial type. I was always walking around, seeing problems and thinking about solutions. And, I came up with a few more ideas, but then my thinking was, these guys owe 55%. Why would I bring that in here when I can just start a company on my own? I mean, look at me, how great I am. I didn't learn a single lesson, about running a business. And here I am opening new businesses. But the thing was that was already around 2005, 2006. Now, that's quite similar to what we were seeing now in 2018, 2019. Everything was going up. Real estate, shares, people buying like crazy, whatever you do. So it was quite
good times,
easy. In those good times, it was quite easy to grow to 7-8 figures, multiple 8 figures, one company, without those solid foundations. Because, when you're building a house, the foundation,
it holds it all up.
is not there for the great times. It's for flooding and rain and earthquakes and so on. And so my businesses were doing great. They were thriving. I was really good at sales. I was really good at marketing, and especially that emotion part and so on. So everything was great until the recession. So in 2008, it started in the US. Everybody in Europe, we were all thinking, oh, that's just US, it won't come here. And then one day you wake up, I remember all the newspapers, the first page was just black.
Wow.
The recession is here. And a few days later, I got a call from the bank, and they said, I was just starting with one real estate project. So we were just starting with the building process. We did all the paperwork, everything. We already invested so much money in. And we were, I don't know, maybe 1/3 already building that huge project. And they said, we made calculations, prices dropped so much, we don't see in the horizon that they will go up anytime sooner. We are stopping that right now because, we'll lose less money than if we keep going with this. And the thing is, so I'm not sure if your audience is from Canada or Australia or US, I don't think they know this particular financial instrument. I don't think it exists there, but in European Union, when you make a loan like that, you give the bank pre-written pre-approval that if you don't repay when they call back the loan, they can just go to all your other bank accounts, all your other assets. They don't have to go to the court first. They do that automatically. So basically, in about 24 hours time frame, they did that. And I was left with nothing. And because I was co-signing so many things, because I had no idea about, asset protection, liability protection, and things like that, because I never took the time to study those things, to invest in lawyers and so on.
The devil's in the details.
I ended up personally owing $5 million to
Mm.
my ex-employees, some for the taxes, to suppliers, to, you name it.
Yep, yep,
I
yep.
felt like I owe money to half of the country.
That's crazy. And you're still like paying it down and everything, or it's all like, paid off, where you've got, use the
No, no,
assets to
no.
pay it off. Oh, yeah.
When I had my exit, I paid
Yep.
off
Yeah, it's all paid
all.
off. Yeah, okay. Yep,
Yes,
yep,
it
yep.
accumulated to almost 7 million by then,
Mm.
with interest and so on, because
Yeah,
that was in 2017.
sure.
So in 8 years,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
it 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 blew up a little bit. But yeah, it's all taken care of.
Yeah.
But it took me 8 years to do that, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, the first few months were really, really hell.
Mm.
Depression, anxiety, phone calls, this, that. I mean, your head is just blowing up, and you
Mm.
can't silence it. Like I had zero peace and silence. I was just constantly in this permanent anxiety mode, permanent depression mode.
Mm.
Uh, and after a few weeks you don't see any potential that something can happen, and then a few more
Mm.
weeks go by, and a few more weeks, and that darkness is more present inside of you, and you
Mm.
start thinking, this will never end, this is it, the whole world has gone crazy.
Yep.
You don't see it as, oh, this too shall pass. That's
Mm.
why right now, when I'm looking for how some people are reacting to the whole corona thing,
Mm.
I see a lot of fear, a lot of, the world will never be the same again, but not
Yep.
in a good way.
Mm. Mm.
But of course, this too shall pass. It might take a few more months, a few more years, and then, the slow bounce back. So it won't be like, wow, tomorrow we're back where we were.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
might never be back where we were,
Mm.
because some things will just change permanently. But in a few years' time, I know there will be people who will say, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. And again, economy will start thriving, and so
Mm.
on. I mean, this is a pattern that we see over and over. But when you're going through that, and I was a very emotional person, all of
Mm.
that really got me. I didn't, go into businesses with fraud in mind, but it
Mm.
felt like I was fraudulating people. I
Mm.
always went into those businesses with my whole heart.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and so it was even double the heart. And then I got divorced, and, a lot of so-called friends don't answer your call
Yeah.
again, and things like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I felt all alone in the whole world.
Mm.
And so, you start thinking, you start coming up with crazy ideas. You start thinking about suicide. You start Googling about suicide,
Yep.
And then one day, I remember it was spring 2010. I got notice that my apartment will be taken by the bank as well.
Yep.
Now, my apartment is on the 5th floor, was on the 5th floor. And, if you're on the 20th, you jump, you die. It's a no-brainer, but on the 5th floor, things can happen. And I remember, it's completely blurry why I was smoking a cigarette. And the next thing I remember, even after so many years now, there's this blank hole. Why I crossed over the fence, I don't know.
Okay.
The next thing I remember is me, left hand on the fence, and I was already inclined over the edge, and I was like, I have to just let go, and bam, I'll fall down. And I was looking down, and as I was looking down, I was asking, it popped into my head, was, what if I don't do this right? What if I, fail here as well, and I will just end up on a wheelchair? Because for me, the desire, why suicide was so desirable, because, you jump, it might hurt for a second, but then, silence, that silence, and
It's
that was so
instant
appealing
escape. Yeah.
to me. Yeah. It wasn't so much to escape from depth and things, but just to get some silence back into my head. And as I was looking down and thinking that, it's almost the best way I can explain is it's almost like this Miha split into two Mihas, and one Miha started yelling at the other Miha, and I did that out loud so my neighbors heard me. And I used a lot of very juicy words, so I'm not going to repeat that here.
Okay.
But, along the line of, why didn't you go to the lawyer? Why did you have to take on that project? Why did you hire that person? One thing that all that had in common was you. And, first, my perfect childhood, never accountable for anything. The second thing, when it's time of crisis, it's so easy to find somebody or something else to blame. The Americans, the government, our government, the banks, like whatever, it's so easy. Like right now, it's not me, it's Corona. It's not me. It's Trump shutting down this state, or Angela Merkel shutting down this, or that leader, this leader, the Chinese. It's so easy to find blame outside of you. But that was a moment of really complete ownership. I finally, for the first time ever, took ownership of my own mistakes, of things that I could have done and I didn't do. Because you can't influence what you can't influence. I can't change Corona. But there are still a lot of things that I can do right now. I can, talk with people, pivot, change, do this, do that. There's always plenty of what you can do. And I was surrendering myself to things that I wasn't able to do. And that changed that in that moment. And then the real aha moment was, well, if I was able to accumulate all that wealth and everything with all those mistakes, if I change, I can do not the same, but better and faster and greater. And that was really the aha moment, that little light that I needed. And I climbed back in, I made a list. And I want to be sure to really point out here, because often in the beginning, when I was sharing my story, I left this part out and people think, oh, you had the aha moment and now, bam, you're flying high. No, it was 3.5 years of struggle, daily struggle. It was one hell of a
still
journey.
Struggling.
Yes, of course, you struggle with your old habits, new habits, old Miha, new Miha, how you would react before, how you must react now. You're struggling with your old autopilot, which was wrong, and all of those things. And even with the change, with all these new things, and you want to see results tomorrow, but they don't happen tomorrow. And you go in the right direction and you have to retrace back. I mean, it was 3.5 years of hell. But, every day you become a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. And, after a year, you're much stronger. The fight is easier. And then the second year and the third year, you're already doing really well. So I just want to make sure that I point this part out, because many people think, oh, you have aha, and then it just, you fly up. But it's not, well, at least for me, it wasn't like that. It was a journey.
Okay. So what did you do, like when you heard, when you reached that aha point, and you had some clarity and you were slowly building yourself out there? It took you about 3 years. What was the daily activities like? What did you do? What was it? Were you just making phone calls, or just doing what you needed to do, or what were you doing? Just pay one bill at a time, or what was it?
Yeah, I was just trying to make one of the things. How you asked me, what's this on my shirt? LOT. One of the big things that I was able to use was, I was always good in networking. Good meaning not huge numbers of people, but very deep relationships. So quality versus quantity. So there were still a lot of people on my list from the past that I was able to reach out to. And they would, I had a friend who had a company, and he said, well, if you want to do some business, just use my company. We'll issue an invoice. We'll pay you out somehow. We'll figure it out. And I was able to. So LOT stands for leverage of trust. That's the only way you can speed up the processes in business development, is if you use leverages. That's true. There are plenty of leverages, but I think the most powerful one, at least in my opinion, the number one currency in the world is not gold, is not US dollar or euro or British pound. It's trust. When you have trust, so much is available to you. And
That's
so
true.
I skipped the initial part and I went where I had the trust. And then, this guy would order something from me, and this guy, and I was, just trying to make first the week meets and then months meet, and I was slowly building the whole thing while I was working on the big idea, which was the energy efficiency startup. But it took a lot of resources to get that up and running.
Can I just say one thing is, like, there's two types of people. There's the ones, like, if you're in that situation where you're going through so much adversity, there's either something that's pushing you forward or there's something that's pulling you forward. What was it for you? Did you feel that you're being pushed forward, or was it hope or something, or that was pulling you forward? What was happening there?
I say the exact same things to people. It's you either go towards the desire or the pleasure, or you're trying to run away from pain.
What were you doing?
In the early stages, it was running away from pain.
Okay.
The pain of the phone calls every day, the pain of what was happening in my head, the pain of
you're pushed in the corner.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was that. Only much later, because I at that time I had no idea about find your why, write down your why. Because I had none of that knowledge, it was only through time, as I was working on myself and I was buying all these books and trying to watch anything I could, and TED Talks and this and that.
So that was helping you. That was giving you help. Okay, good.
Yeah, but that's how I learned about, like, find your why, know who you are, take a deep dive, do this, do that. So as I was going, I was learning what do I have to do and how to do it. So it was only later. And then, as I mentioned, my dog Happy was a big part of having something to fight for. That was something that I loved more than I loved myself. Fighting for myself, what's the point? But for him, it was worth fighting for. And that slowly then transitioned in me loving myself more and so on. And then when I sold my startup, the one that I scaled to multiple 9 figures in just 2 years, I found myself with the abundance of time and everything. And I was going to meetups because I wanted to be surrounded with fellow entrepreneurs. I tried going on a vacation, but after 3 days, I was bored to death. I need to be amongst entrepreneurs. I need to be brainstorming something. I'm that entrepreneur. And so they start asking you questions and, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And then at least for me, it was a realization, wow, this feels so good. This feels 1,000 times better than when you do something for yourself. When you get, emails telling you like how much you've changed somebody's life.
It's a great feeling.
Wow, no money can buy that feeling. So it was kind of like going from stage to stage with not having a real why, but just going away from the pain. And then Happy was my why, and then I started putting myself much more first. And then once I was able to fix myself, like with the why started to be like, oh wow, I can help so many people. They don't have to go through all the same shit I went through and so on. And so it kind of just is an evolving story. And now I have these 2 crazy things, the Failures Anonymous, the animals, and who knows what will come up in the next few years and where I will go with all of this. But in the beginning, it was running away from that pain. And now it's really just things that push me forward to do bigger, greater. One of my big heroes, not in everything, is Bill Gates, Andrew Carnegie. What you'll see they have in common is, how they did their business, how they made their fortune. Some people say this, some people say that. I'm not a big fan of Microsoft. I switched to Apple many years ago. But what he's doing now with and all of his friends who are pledging so much and doing all these things. I mean, yeah, sure. I want to be the richest person in the world, and then use all that money to fund, for children, for animals, for elderly people, for for young entrepreneurs. I mean, I have so many ideas. I see so many problems in the world, but you can't solve them all at once. You have to do it step by step, and instead of waiting to be a billionaire, which a lot of people do that. They have ideas, they want to inspire or make an impact, but then they hold themselves back. I don't have the resources yet. Well, I don't have all the resources to help all the animals, but at least I can help 2 dogs today, or 3 dogs tomorrow, or something like. So I'm always trying to do what I can with what I have, and working towards having more, so that I can do even more.
That's great. Yep. But let me ask you: is when you were in all that adversity and looking back, did you see any any miracles or any signs from a higher power or anything that was sending you signs that help is on the way? Did you see anything like that? I'm just curious.
It wasn't so much
any synchronicities,
like some higher. It was more like this feeling, like when I told you that friend of mine who said, like, use my company, and so often he and I would have a walk and something like that, and I always was telling him, I know that I'm gonna solve this, and he was like, how? Like, how do you know? I said, I have no answers. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing logical that I can tell you right now. I have this in the pipeline, and this goes through. It was just this inner feeling that everything will be okay, and that I will solve it. I don't know where that feeling came from. Just at one point, I started feeling like that, and I had nothing to back that up. It was just a feeling, an inner feeling. That I was always saying to him, listen to me, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. I had, and he was asking me, like, how do you say, can you say that? And I was going to, like Jyotish and those people who, take your cards and dates, and they tell you a little bit about the future, and somehow it all sounded good, and you'll come out of this, and you'll do great, and this will happen, and that will happen. And I don't know, did I believe that, or did I make myself believe that? But it felt so true. It felt aligned with how I felt on the inside. Again, I was in the middle of the biggest shit. I was still owing so much money. So I had nothing to say, so this is how I will do it. It was just a combination of a few outside factors and that inner feeling. And I knew that I have to keep going. I have to keep going.
Okay, great. Okay, so then that leads on to the idea of another lesson that you've learned in terms of failure, and then you realize that you can teach other people on learning from the failures. Is that right? Like, that's when you became a failure coach, right? And then you built I think BizDev. Yep, is that right?
The thing is, every entrepreneurial journey is filled with roadblocks and failures and testing and trying and all of that. Now, how you handle that part has direct influence on how successful you will be and when you will reach success. So instead of fearing failure, instead of going all emotional and negative self-talk and on this downward spiral when something unwanted happens, I mean, I understand that emotion. I understand why all of that is there. But what I'm working on with my clients is that we turn away that thing, and that they fall in love with failure, that they fall in love with and embrace it. And the more you do that, the faster you can bounce. The quicker you will see. Now, it's a combination, solid foundations and healthy relationship with failure, because solid foundations like processes, KPIs, benchmarking, they will show you when something's not working much sooner. Often people who fail the most, or like the biggest extent, they have no measuring in place, and so they don't even realize that they are failing until they really fail hard. That's what happened to me. I had nothing to measure things in between. So when you lay down strong foundations, you can see that something is not working. So, before you get all emotional, and before that's the worst thing in your life, you are already reacting. So you're reacting to something that's at a much smaller scale. The emotions are not so hard. And then, you're pushing things forward. Even when I'm working with startups, we put it in the business plan. We prepare for failure. We brainstorm what are some of the most common failures that we can anticipate, and we make a plan. And so if you have a plan, you go directly to that. You don't go into emotions. Oh, I have a plan for this. I already predicted this. What's the plan? Let's execute the plan.
So you recommend to come up with a plan first to mitigate that risk, right? If in case that fails, then just have your plan ready, right?
I mean, the thing is, the best relationship is a rational, a logical relationship.
Yeah, okay. Keep emotion out of it, yeah.
Yeah, because failure happens for, maybe you overlooked some things. Maybe, you're doing some wrong steps and you didn't recognize that. Maybe you have bottlenecks. Maybe the goal was not, set smartly because, I don't know, you set the goal because of you were emotional and it wasn't really a smart goal. It wasn't anything you can actually achieve or something like that. So there's quite a few different things, but when you look at them logically and when you dissect the process, and you go into process and you reverse engineer A to B, because it's never just one step. It's always it takes time, it takes steps. Yeah. So when you go into that, if you go with the logic, if you implement some ways of measuring things and so on, benchmarking, then you have a healthy relationship with failure, and it's much easier to then come up with, okay, so this was the wrong step. What else can we do? Do we know? If we don't know, who can we ask? Oh, there's an agency that offers that. I hear good things about them. Maybe they can help us. Let's call them out. Let's see if they can consult us on this and help us move past this hurdle.
Yeah. I like what you said before, that these days, if you're not failing, you feel kind of weird. I think you've reached that level where, like, you need to fail because that's, you feel normal when you're failing. But if you're not failing, then what's going on? You're not doing anything, right? So
yes. So the thing is, if we look at it logically, if you don't fail, that means you are in your comfort zone. Now, if you already achieved everything and you're in your comfort zone, that's one thing. But, honestly, I think we are always, the more we achieve, the more we push ourselves. So when you fail is when you're doing things that are outside of your comfort zone. You're doing them for the first, second time. The likelihood of you failing is much greater than the likelihood of you succeeding. Well, and it doesn't have to be just business. Anything that you do for the first time, your first date might be a failure. Your first girlfriend might not turn out to be the way you wanted it. You have to go through a few things before you figure out, even for yourself, what do I really want? And we get to know ourselves through those failures as well.
True.
So anything that you desire or you want or you dream about or is your purpose is beyond your comfort zone. And the bigger your dreams, and like here, especially entrepreneurs, we have these crazy big dreams. I want to go to Mars. I want to do this. I want to do that. You have to be outside of the comfort zone all the time. So for me personally, if we don't fail in our business every single day, or at least once in 2 or 3 days, I'm scared, because that means that we are slacking off. We are not pushing ourselves. We are not going towards the dreams because we're just doing things that we are comfortable with.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. Yeah, you definitely. It's like like what you said. It's like an indicator. You need some sort of measurement where if you're not failing and you're not measuring it, then you're not getting feedback, and then you can't really tweak it and make adjustments to improve. So there you go. There. Okay, another question is: let's say that you go into a time machine, right? And you press a button and go back maybe 10, 15, 20 years. And, based on what you've experienced and everything, what would you say to your younger self?
Just do what you want to do.
Do what you want. Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes. Because in all honesty, I got this question many times, and of course, you think, oh, like give myself advice. I don't know, don't go into that business, or don't do this, or something. Or then you say, well, why would I do that? I would just go back and say, like, buy Apple shares when they were $2, or buy Bitcoin when it came out, and bam, all your problems are saved. But the thing is, if you go back in time, and even if you change a little thing, that chain reaction, that butterfly effect.
True,
who knows who I would be today? And I'm really grateful for the journey I went through. I know why I needed those lessons, because that cocky, self-confident, no accountability Miha, I don't think that's who I really was. I think I was so influenced in my 20s by all the outside world, that I kind of started living, because I feel that through this journey, I reconnected with who Miha truly was. Because from a young age, I was always very helpful. I loved helping people and so on. And then I became this, self-obsessed douchebag. Because I was just letting the outside world to influence me. I was judging my success based on how many cars I had, based on what restaurants I went to, and being part of all these fancy clubs and so on, like cigar club or something like that. So I really needed a hard lesson. I really needed that. And looking back, I'm very grateful. I'm really appreciative of how life taught me. Let's be honest, at a fairly young age. I mean, a lot of people figure those things out when they're 50, 60. So,
yeah, true.
I was 30 something when I really started looking at the world in a different way, behaving differently, doing good things, great things.
Yeah.
And I would not change that for anything. Because I would risk not being who I am today. And I love my life. I'm absolutely obsessed with the work that I do. My first lady is constantly asking me, like, why do you need to go on so many interviews and this and that? I'm just so passionate about that.
I can tell.
I don't. This is not about me. I'm not here to promote myself or anything. I go on so many interviews so that I can reach other audiences. And I don't know, maybe somebody who will listen to this podcast will hear something about failure, and maybe will just trigger something. And will save one life. I mean, just true. For that, it was more than worth it being your guest. So that's why I
100% agree. Yeah, when I saw your story, I just knew that your story is enough to inspire someone, because there's a lot of people who are struggling, and if your story that you share with them, that's enough for them to just give them a bit of petrol, bit of fuel to just keep pushing forward, and that's enough. And you don't realize how powerful your story is. And what you've experienced can really help people. I really do mean that. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So another thing I always remembered is that, like, one of the best things that can ever happen to you is when you hit rock bottom, and especially if you do that early. And I think you just briefly spoke about that, because if you do it early, then you get the tenacity, you've got the character, and you learn a lot. But if you do it later on in life, it's really hard to overcome it, because it's like really it's a huge mental shift, you know, if you go through rock bottom later on in life,
Yeah.
but you did it
I
early,
mean,
so that's really good.
it is easier. I mean,
Mm,
once you have kids and
mm,
things like that, of course it's harder. It's not
mm,
impossible. I
yeah.
mean, every time when I wanted to give up on this journey,
Mm,
I always remember the story of KFC, the Colonel
yeah, yeah,
Sanders, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I mean, you know, you see, I'm a little bit chubby. I'm already going a little bit white. I don't have that beard, but
Yeah,
you know, I can just see that guy, you know, with his belly and everything, and he's
yeah. He started in his
63,
60. Yeah, yeah,
64.
yeah,
Yeah, driving around the US in that
yeah.
shitty Corolla from the 70s or 60s, not like what we know today in cars.
Mm,
And he's sleeping at truck stops
mm,
and making those chickens in that parking lot so that he
mm,
can give them for a taste test throughout
yeah.
the day. And then 1,000 and what, 9 or 18 restaurants tell you no, and you still
Mm,
keep going. I
yeah,
mean, that's freaking
yeah.
insane. I mean,
That is crazy.
I got,
Yeah.
I probably got 50 no's, 100 no's or something,
Mm.
but 1,000? I mean,
It's
but every time when I would want to give up and just send everything to hell, I'm
Mm,
always remembered about his story. And
mm,
then the second thing is a poem from Charles Bukowski. It's
mm.
called All the Way.
All the way.
And it's
Okay.
a really simple poem. You can find it on YouTube. There's this version where I don't know who, but somebody with very nice deep voice and that
Mm,
eerie music, you know, like it's played out. I always use that one.
mm,
But it's all about, you know, like, why would you even start if you're not ready to go all the way?
mm, mm,
You know,
mm.
so why did I start? Why did I invest, I don't know, last 3-4 years of my life if I'm
Mm.
not willing to push this to finish what I've started?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. But
Mm,
those are like two triggers. And another thing that I love is TED Talks. You
mm.
have so many stories there,
That's
people
true.
who experienced, in my view, much harder things. You know, they
Mm.
ended up on wheelchairs and things like that. I mean,
Yep.
you know, sorry, but I just lost money. I'm still
Yeah.
healthy. I have all my legs and
Mm,
arms and everything. I mean,
mm,
compared to them, I didn't really went through much, let's be
mm,
honest.
mm.
And so when I see them go on stage
It's like,
and
wow.
and
Yeah.
say there,
Mm,
this was the best thing that ever happened to me, and my mind is going like, how can you freaking say that?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you ended up on a wheelchair. How can you say
Mm,
that? But
mm,
then I remember my story and how I always say that, you know, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
mm,
But those really inspire me. So, you
mm.
know, maybe sometimes we are inspired by stories that at least we process and filter like
Yeah.
bigger than what's happening to us.
True.
Because one thing, when you get all emotional when you're failing,
Mm,
is you think that you have it the worst in the whole world, that
yeah.
this is only happening to you. You know, like everybody else is better,
Mm,
especially nowadays with, you know, social media. Wherever you go, you know, somebody, Lambo, Ferrari, this, that, you
mm.
know, like all those positive stories,
Yep.
and you're there and you feel like shit,
Mm,
you know. And so going to TED Talks or something similar, where you hear stories that at least you understand as shittier than yourself,
mm.
maybe they can inspire you to say, if that guy made it,
Yep.
oh boy, can I make it.
That's true.
That's why, you know, one of the things that I'm always trying to be super honest when I'm sharing my stories, for people to really understand that, you know, I was nothing special. I had no
Mm,
college degree. You know, I had no work ethics. You know, like all those things. I mean, when I'm talking with other fellow entrepreneurs, they have so much more from the start than
mm,
I had. You
mm.
know, I was really thick-headed. I was self-obsessed. I was, you know, like, I see so many people who are from the start already much in a better position than I
Yep.
was. Plus all the technology that's available to us today, and all
Mm,
of that. If I was able to do it, and then literally nothing special about me,
mm,
then anybody can. And this is really the gist of, you know, what I'm trying to communicate.
mm, mm.
You know, I mean, Even
love it.
look, last few years, I mean, English is only my third language. Like, if you would see some of the videos from 3-4 years ago, like I had this extreme Russian mafia accent. I mean, like I was
Subtitles.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with time, with practice, and
Mm,
just keep going,
that's
keep
true.
going, and
That's true.
you become better and better and better. I mean, I still have
Mm,
an accent. My vocabulary is still far from perfect, but
understandable. Yeah,
at
yeah.
least now
Mm,
I know how to communicate the things that I
true.
want to communicate.
True, true. It reminds me of like your story reminds me of what Steve Jobs said in his speech. He says you can't connect the dots looking forwards, you can only connect them looking backwards. So when you're going through all that adversity, you don't know where it's going. You're completely lost. But now that you're away from that, you're looking back and you can see the pathway on how, you know, you found the dogs, you met that finance person, you're hanging by a, you're holding on onto the ledge, about to jump, but you didn't. All these things that just linked onto all these other things. So but
Yeah,
would you agree to that, to you connecting dots?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything
okay.
Steve said, I agree.
Yeah, I love it.
He was my amazing mentor. I mean, not that I
Mm,
know him in person, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just watching the stuff, the keynotes and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
it's
I
amazing.
learned so much about
Mm,
storytelling and
mm,
marketing and emotions. And
mm,
yeah, he was an amazing
yeah.
mentor, even from very far apart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, then. So, how can people get in contact with you and find out what you're up to?
Um, One easy way, you go to Google and you search Fail Coach, and
Mm-hmm.
bam, that's Miha. And then
Yep.
you can see whichever platform or whatever works best for you.
Yep.
Now, I'm most active on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Cool.
On LinkedIn, I do LinkedIn Live interviews every Monday. I try
Mm-hmm.
to bring amazing guests that can give a lot of value to fellow entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
On Facebook, I have a paid group, but it's like one-time payment, $17, so it's not
Yeah.
like really a lot.
Mm,
The Leverage of Trust.
mm,
They can figure, it's easy entry, and all they have to do is go to leverageoftrust.com,
yep.
and they'll get into it, and then they can see how I do what I do. Most
Mm,
content I share in there. So like, for example, right now we're doing series on foundational stuff,
mm,
especially for the corona, and for what's coming, and so
okay.
on. Really just my lessons from what happened
Mm,
in the past recession, and how we can apply some of those in this current
mm,
situation. So that's where I'm migrating with all the best content into
mm,
that group. Of course, then of course they're always welcome to jump on a call with me and so on,
mm,
and we'll see if there's anything else I can help them with. But
yep.
even just being in there.
Mm,
One thing that I really love hearing,
mm,
because it's my biggest, one of the top 3 values, is that everybody says that they're getting much more than what they expected or paid, and this really shows me that we are over delivering, under
mm,
promising, and that's something I'm really proud of our
mm,
company, and my team knows. I'm a huge fan of cooking. I mean, you can
yeah.
see, and I always enjoyed and loved those 2-3 Michelin star restaurants.
Love it.
And I'm
Mm,
always saying, I want our stuff to be that 2-3 Michelin star
mm,
experience when it comes to business development, business coaching, and so on. So
mm.
that's something that's very dear to my heart.
That's great. All right, Miha. I really appreciate your time today, and you're really inspiring. And I know that your story is going to help other people, get through the adversity. And just like exactly what you said, you never know who you're going to reach. And there's people out there that's really struggling, and your story can really help them. To pull up, to pull themselves out
Thank
of
you.
it. So thank you for your time, and wish you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you. And
No
it
worries.
was a huge pleasure being your guest. Thank you
Yeah,
again for inviting me. It was lovely chatting like this.
Of course, no worries. Yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you in person one day. So.